Good morning, good afternoon. This is Frank Ramondi. I'm VP for Channel Alliances and Partnerships at IGI Cyber Labs, the maker of Nodeware. I want to welcome everybody for joining today. We're going to wait just a little bit longer, see if we get a couple more stragglers here after the top of the hour, but just hang on the line and we'll get started here in a moment. I will remind, well, I'll do it again in a minute, but if you do have any questions for the folks that are on, you can submit them in the question panel in the console, and we'll answer them along the way. So why don't we go ahead and we'll get started again. Just what we're going to go through today is a little bit of intro to Nodeware, a little background, and then get kind of right into live Q&A, live demo, and Q&A that whatever we might be able to help you with in terms of understanding Nodeware. So Nodeware as a product was really developed about 6-7 years ago as a tool within the other part of our company, IGI Cybersecurity, which is doing consulting services around penetration tests and incident response and risk assessments and sort of virtual CISO or fractional CISO and CIO services. So they were using an enterprise-focused tool that was really heavy, really burdensome and costly. And so they developed a product that became Nodeware. And then in the last year and a half, we've kind of started rolling this out to the channel and trying to stay as channel focused and dedicated as we can. So we just wanted to do that quick intro and then tell you a little bit about it, and just again remind you, your attendees, if there are any questions, please submit them in the questions area of the console, and we'll be happy to answer them along the way. The other thing, just actually, Nora, just go back 1 second on the slide. I did just want to introduce what we're doing here, and I'll remind it again at the end. But this session is a live Q&A. We do also do a monthly sort of a thought leadership, public service type of announcement or a webinar where we'll bring in experts from the field, from CISA or from NIST or from other vendors that are doing really focused and valuable services, such as cyber insurance companies. And we just have a discussion, kind of a really focused on small, medium businesses, as well as MSPs that we have on here today. And one of the special things we do there is enable you as the MSP to invite your customers or your prospective customers. We can provide you a custom URL if you want to use that to promote, and then anybody that does attend, we would provide that information back to you. So you can keep an eye on nodeware.com/events if you have any ideas or questions or want to attend that on those, and we're just finalizing the January date, but we'll have that out soon enough. So again, we've got a few more people on. I'm going to just do one last quick intro of Nodeware. It's a vulnerability management scanning product, SaaS focused. The product is available via an annual subscription. There's not any longer than that. You can pay for it up front as a license or a subscription. It's a multi-tenant, so if you want to provide, get one block of 50 assets or multiple blocks, you can split them up for 10 assets for one customer, 33 for another, and 66. However you like to use them, they are available to be split amongst your customers, and we'll show in the demo here what you can see and how you can perfect that. But a few of the things, just wanted the 5 key features, and you'll see these as Mark, my colleague here on the line, will go through in the demo. But really the 5 key features that we like to promote and we think are the most valuable. One is truly continuous scanning. This is the product that was running 24 hours, 24/7. There's no need to schedule events. There's no need to schedule scans. We're scanning the network every minute for assets, and whether they're new assets or existing ones that we know about, and whether they're online, so you can get that information quickly. But every asset, every IP address is scanned once a day. So your data that you're looking at, or you're trying to find, risk valuations within your customers, is never more than a day old. So that's a huge value add. The setup that we'll go through is you can have a customer up and running within 10 minutes probably, and have data in hand within a half hour. And Mark can describe a little bit more on that. But again, that's a really key feature. The simplicity of the setup is very valuable. Because we're doing this continuous scanning and checking for assets, if you do find a new device on your network, you can be alerted to the customer and the location of where that new asset was found, and you can decide what you need to do with it based on the information you'll find in the portal. The reporting is really robust and detailed, as well as executive summaries available, so a very high level. And then the scalability, right? This could work for a customer of 5 devices or 5,000 or more. One of the key new features as well that I wanted to call out is a deep scan feature that enables really a lot of time saving for your techs that many of our current customers are using, or found that they can they're saving 15 to 20 minutes or more per vulnerability that's found on their network, because of our deep scan and the ability that we're able to show more data back, that you can, we're not doing the remediation, but we can provide you very specific remediation steps and suggestions. So again, Mark will get into that. So with that, I don't see any questions that popped up yet. So Mark, why don't we go ahead and kind of start through and kind of emphasize some of the points that I talked about there as the key features, and show these folks what we can do.
Sounds great, Frank. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, all. Mark Klein with the IGI Nodeware team. Been on the customer service and support development side since the inception. So if there's a question, hopefully I'll be able to answer it for you. Here's the view, if everyone can see the screen. This is the view of our dashboard once I have logged in and provided my MFA, of course. This is the landing page. We call it the elements page. Some real high stats on this page. My average score in the top left-hand corner, 878. And then the breakdown. This is 878 is an average score of my 4 customers. This is a multi-tenant dashboard. Total assets are 164, 156, which are internal local area network assets. And 8 of them are external public-facing IP addresses or domain names. Just some cyber, some cyber news, and then our high-level worldwide statistics down at the bottom there. Really, the meat and potatoes is when you get into the multi-tenancy of this system, and you can get there 3 different ways. You can click customers on the left menu, you can click on the score, or you can click customers here. It'll all take you to the same place. Here I am, multi-tenants. I have 4 customers in this account. If I want to add a new customer, as Frank mentioned, you can have a sensor or agents deployed in under 10 minutes and data being collected within 15 to 30 minutes, because it does have to sweep the network to gather the initial payload of the data set. So to add a customer in the top right-hand corner, I hit add new customer. We just need a company name, first name, last name, email address, and a website. Email address and website are optional. If this is a commit where that company that is your customer has their own IT staff and you want to share an invite, you can go ahead and turn this on. Also, when you create a new customer, the first time you create a customer, you are able to provide a 7-day free trial. And that is an unlimited asset scan, which we can talk more about when we get into the assets, which is how we bill. You hit submit, you end up with a card similar to what you see up here. That is what I call a customer object. Now, if I want to go in and manage this account a little bit further, here are my details that I entered on the previous page. My sites and interfaces. So here's where I can submit my external public-facing IP addresses or domains. I can add external. So here I can just put in my domain name, right there. Or I can put in my public-facing IP addresses. This could be your firewall, email servers. You could do a full sitter range of all the public IP addresses that the customer may own. Under this setting is also where you can download our agents. So I'll touch briefly on this. You deploy agents, or you deploy Nodeware in multiple ways. A sensor which I call a fishing net. That is a single device on your network, and it sweeps the entire scan range which you supply. It will go out and pick up everything from your routers, your switches, your servers, your HVAC systems, your IP cameras, anything with an IP address that is currently on that network will be picked up, and that will be considered a monitored asset. The other way is with agents. Agents, everyone should be pretty familiar with them. They are installed on the local asset that you want to monitor. For example, I'm working from home today. I have a corporate issued laptop. This runs an agent. It's not worried about my desktop, my personal desktop computer, or my Roku TV, or anything else on my local area network at my house. It's only going to scan this local asset. The beautiful part about agents, they're credentialed scan by nature. Because you're installing them on the local workstation, you're prompted for administrative rights. It's going to be installed, and it's just a background service that runs that uses less than 3% of CPU utilization. And we also provide down here a script to push these out in bulk. So through any distribution manager, Windows distribution manager or RMM tool, you can push out agents silently in the background to the machines, and it will just run as a service. So we offer these in the flavor of Windows, Mac OS, same, both have the scripts below, and as well as Linux Debian based. We are currently working on a Red Hat CentOS agent as well as sensor, and they will be here momentarily, early Q1. Credentialed scanning. So as I stated, agents are credentialed in nature because you're installing them locally on the machine. Credentialed scanning is for sensors. And to add, by default, a sensor will scan uncredentialed. It will probe all the devices on the network for open ports, services, processes, and other things that can garner for headed and packet inspection type scans to find the vulnerabilities. If you want to get the sensor to equate to an agent, you can apply credentials. You simply hit add credentials, provide a nickname, the type. We use WinRM as well as SSH for your Apple or Mac and Linux machines. And then you provide the login credentials. And then you can apply those to your sensor devices. So the sensor will log into the background of the machine. It will have access to the registry, the full file system, all open ports internally and externally, so on and so forth. So the nice thing about credentialed scans is you get a much richer data set on the results, which I'll show you briefly here in a moment. Tag management, relatively new in 2022. Based off of any tagging methodology, you can create tags. So if I wanted to create a tag called Fix Me, I can create that. I want to select the color pink. There it is. I can add as many tags as I want to this, and I'll show you how to apply them when we get to the customer dashboard data results. The alerts dashboard, here's all the alerts that have come in on this device or on this network. So we provide critical alerts. As Frank mentioned, we scan the entire network, or every device, every 1 minute, it reports back. And we see something new that we have not seen before, that would be considered a new device. So those fire off an alert. You can specify up to 3 different email addresses and or Slack channels. So if you have a Slack, if you use Slack, you can just create a channel, select it here, and you put in the, by default, we provide you one, and that will send it to your Slack channel. We're also working on that integration for Microsoft Teams, so it can send it to a channel instead of over the email wire. Critical vulnerability, whenever we do a vulnerability scan, as Frank mentioned, every device on your network will get at least 1 vulnerability scan per 24 hours. If there's a critical device alert, it will pop that and send it to the addresses or channels that you've allocated for receiving those alerts. Sensor offline, again, you just toggle those on and off, is twofold. A, we have not heard from your sensor in a period of 30 minutes. So it could be, A, your sensor has been powered off, something went out, but it can also be indicative of an internet outage. So those are kind of a multifaceted alert. So now if we go back to the customer's dashboard, let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. Here are the results of our scan. So as we mentioned, Nodeware will scan every 1 minute. What is it getting within that minute? It's going to pull the status, the IP address, and the MAC address. That is what we call the inventory process. What you can see here, this is an exclamation point, is a critical vulnerability, or this device is scoring below a 500. The green eye is the device is currently online. And the next status is what type of protection does this have? This asset has been protected by the Nodeware agent. Then there's this one is a credentialed scan. It's just a little graphical of a guy, shaded in graphical guy. And then you can see down here that same graphic with a slash. This is uncredentialed scan. Deploying a sensor defaultly would provide these type of scan results. So if we dive into any one of these, let's pick this. Oh, let me go back. Sorry, one thing. I'm trying to erase through this. We have an 830 total devices of assets online are 17. So again, that's of the green and red eye, online and offline, red being offline. Assets scanned thus far, 18, and assets monitored, 19. What's the difference? Assets scanned are inventory, fingerprinted, which is host name and fingerprint information is gathered, and then vulnerability scan. So it's a three-step process. So what this is meaning is that 18 have been completed fully, but we were monitoring 19, meaning one of them has either been powered off, it joined the network really quick and it didn't have time to get a vulnerability scan. So it's being monitored for when it does come back online, it will jump to the head of the queue and be scanned for vulnerabilities. We dive into this machine. This is an agent machine. So you can tell right up here, it has an agent installed. Here's the host name. You can override that by just replacing that. Just click in the box. You can type in anything you want. You can override the operating system. Agents, I can tell you right now, you'll never have to do this. They're 100% accurate. The only time that we are roughly 90 to 95% are on uncredentialed scans from a sensor, which I will dive into real quick. And now I want to get into the details. So I see these open SSL vulnerabilities. I have 7 of them. They're collapsed by default when you have multiple. So I expand that. When I want to click into one of them, so this is a 940 score. Here is the actual CVE that it was detected. The description of the CVE can be found here. And then this is what we refer to as our new deep scan data. Why do I have this vulnerability? My Windows system, my Windows 10 system is completely up to date according to Windows. However, what we found is in this path here, there is this file, SSLE32DLL. Believe it or not, Microsoft has this installed by default. It's an ODBC driver that gets installed with Office 16, many Office packages for backwards compatibility with old Outlook clients. So this file is still resident on the system. So that is an attack vector that is still resident, even though Windows says that it is fully up to date. So the deep scan data really saves you research time, because can't tell you how many people come back and say, all my updates are installed and I'm still getting this vulnerability. Why? And we point to this or something very similar. Typically we would say, put credentials on the sensor or install an agent, and it'll give you the exact pathing. The pathing also provides the program that is doing it. So you can see right here, Microsoft Office. So if this wasn't Office, let's say it was Splashtop or some other program, you can work with the company and make an educated decision. Is this a program that's needed for business to run on a day-to-day basis, or can it just be uninstalled and we can eliminate any of these updates or support issues that may come with it? So that's a real time saver. We've had our MSPs report a $40,000 to $50,000 a year in time savings because they don't have to go research and do software inventory to actually find out what is causing that to pop.
Actually, hey, Mark, let me just emphasize that point a little bit and ask a question if anybody has any response of the attendees, right? If you know that 40 to 50 is kind of a calculation based on, I think I mentioned earlier, the 15-20 minute savings per per vulnerability found. I'm just wondering if you know, if anybody in the audience is, you know, seeing that or is confirming that number, the amount of time that is spent on discovering and finding the path, and you know, things that we just provided you there. So if you have any other comments or questions, please put them in the questions or chat window there. Love to hear from you on that. But I think, you know, again, this is really a, you know, a huge time savings for many of our MSPs today. So we love to explain more on that and sort of help you set that up as needed. So go ahead, Mark. Sorry, I just wanted to reemphasize that point a little bit.
Yep, so this is just more for your information. Here you can see is a Windows Server 2019 bare bones install. Nope, fresh install. Out of the gate, it has 1,764 vulnerabilities. Look at the number of criticals that this thing has. 98 plus 70 plus 6. All of these are critical. So if you think you're using the latest and greatest and you aren't up on your patching and checking stuff, again, look at this, 1,700, almost 1,800 vulnerabilities out of the box just from a Microsoft install. So that's significant. That's more for display purposes than anything else. But here we can see John's machine. This is a sensor scan. You can dive into these. The Ubuntu Outlook looks slightly different, but again, you still have your CVE, the description, and the solution data set brought right to the forefront. Here's the solution. Luckily, Linux has a great solution. It's literally run sudo app update and sudo app upgrade, would update the packages to the latest version to remove this vulnerability. However, in some cases, there are business critical machines you can't update because it would break some critical application. So you may want to accept a risk. How you do that? You would hit modify. The risk type can be general acceptance, compensating control, or a false positive. False positives do get reported back to the development team for further research. But in this case, let's say it's business. It's a critical business initiative. And I set it, and I can have an expiration date of 1 month, 3 months, or 6 months, or never. If I say 6 months, I have to put the reason, blah, 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 and I hit submit. For a period of 6 months, the 0 score will be removed from my overall customer score. After that 6 months expires, it will then be released back, and it will start to report back on that vulnerability again. So you're basically accepting a risk for a period of time, or you can say never, and it will always just ignore that vulnerability in the future for that customer.
And Mark, another example that could be a, you know, let's say it's an old Windows 7 machine on a factory floor that, you know, just has to run specialty applications, right? I mean, that might be a case where you would modify something else.
Right, correct. So Windows 7 would throw an end of life critical right away because you cannot have support. There are no future patches available. So you could accept that end of life critical vulnerability for a period of time that you think you could have that upgraded or replaced. One thing I did forget to mention, we do score on a 0 to a 999 basis. Your green being good up here in the fuel gauge is around a 950 is where you're shooting to be. I would say anything under 900. There's 1 or 2 things that need to be taken care of. 950, you're pretty much good. You'll never get a 999 without unplugging all your computers and turning them off, basically. Here's an uncredentialed scan. So this is a W9 machine. So it looks like it's a router. You see someone's modified or accepted a couple of risks on this one. And here's the big difference between the deep scan result. Because we don't have credentials enabled, we don't have access to the file system to pull back the actual file or file path. But we do still supply the description and a solution. And then the C also is the actual link. I like to use the NIST database. It takes you right to that vulnerability. And if you go down to advisory solutions and tools, you can find here's a third-party patch advisory. I can follow this link, and it will walk you through some suggestions of what to look for and how to remediate that. That is a good step towards helping you with the research, but again, there's still eyes on page to be able to make a determination where with credentialed scans, there is no need to research. Here's the problem, here's the file, your choice. Delete the file, rename the file, update the file, delete the program. Those are your options at that point, and there's no need to go to NIST or go outside of the Nodeware system when you're running agents or credentialed scans. So I do kind of push that is the recommended deployment, which is agents wherever you can. All your systems, servers, laptops, desktops, anything that can receive an agent, deploy the agents. And a sensor to scan everything else, all your network gear, your printers, your VoIP phones, your IP cameras, so on and so forth. So it's a mixture of both. So that's kind of the data set. So I did talk about tagging quick. I did create that tag. How does that work? So here are all some tags either auto-generated, so based off a fingerprint, we will add some default fingerprints like Windows 10. If I want to see all my Windows 10 machines, I just click that and it filters that list very quickly. If I want to, again, Ubuntu, here's all my Ubuntu devices. If I wanted to add additional tags to my Ubuntu machines, I would come over here and do the multi-select to select all. And now I have a multifaceted window up here where I can do some more tasks. Here's the first one is tag. So I added the fix me tag. Boom, now they all have the fix me tag. I can also add credentials to these. If I click add credentials, I can select the credentials that I added. You select the benchmark, which is basically the operating system that it's running, and then hit apply. I can run a report for just these devices that are selected. I can go ahead and run a report. All of our reports are available right in that drop-down list. I can pause scanning. I can pause it from vulnerability scanning, or I can issue rescans. Issuing a rescan just moves them up in a queue, and the next available slots in the queue, they would get inserted first. Clear all
Mark,
of that.
Yeah, I was just saying on the rescan is a you know, we get a lot of MSPs that say, you know, I did the work and I want to you know, check my work, right? And that's how you would do that on a current basis. So you might have done the patch and you want to just see if it's taken hold and it's changed the number. You can do that rescan, and it'll put it into the top of the queue for the next set of assets that the software is scanning. So
correct. So as Frank mentioned, everything does get scanned every 24 hours. So if you did remediate those Ubuntu devices and you don't want to wait for its next cycle within the next 24 hours, you want to see the results now that you did a good job and it is fixed, that's when you would issue a rescan on those devices. And it won't wait the 24 hours. It takes it right to the head of the queue. Otherwise, you could just continue on with your business, and then on the next scheduled scan, it would then show that those devices were remediated properly, or not. Maybe you missed something and you need to do it. So that's kind of the general rule of thumb is after you do some remediation, issue rescans, then you get your results faster. Let's say you had a meeting in the afternoon, you want to show a progress, you could do the rescan, then you could go ahead and generate your report for those. Here are the sensors. So very similar to the customer object, here are your sensor objects. So for the Aperture Science, I have one sensor deployed. Under Mifflin, I have two. The green and red is showing this sensor is online. Green, this sensor happens to be offline at the moment. But I can go to my downloads in the top right-hand corner, and here are the three flavors that you can download. You can download a Windows EXE, basically standard Windows installation, next install type process. For those that want to deploy that don't have a lot of hardware, you can, again, going back to Windows, you can only deploy one sensor per machine because it's physical bare metal machine. But if you want to deploy multiple sensors, let's say you have a California, Chicago, and New York office, you're headquartered out of California, you have virtualization in place, you can go ahead and download Hyper-V or VMware, depending on your flavor of virtualization. You can deploy all three sensors for those three different locations on a single virtual server. In California, it will scan across the wire, provided there is a dedicated connection, and scan your Chicago office and New York office from the California headquarter office. Windows is very easy. I always recommend this to get started. Any Windows 10 or greater machine, just download it. Next, 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 install. Part of that process is it will stop. And I'll actually pull up the, show that here. Deployment, Windows 10. So we have a full Windows step-by-step. How do you deploy it? Here you can see, I go to downloads, I download it here. I just start my process, next, next, next. We're going to get to a point where it wants you to activate it. How does it link the sensor to the customer? During the installation, it'll provide this 4-digit code, a 4-digit code. They're all unique. Then when you want to connect that sensor to the customer, you would go up top right-hand corner, connect sensor, put in that 4-digit code, give it an optional name, and then you would select the customer that you want it to go to. Upon hitting connect, you would then see an additional sensor object right here. So that means that Aperture would then be running 2 sensors. This is how far along are you in your account. Again, we are an asset-based selling mechanism. Here's a breakdown of my customer assets. Internal assets, 156. 8 of them are external domains or public IP address. Here's a same as the pie chart. It's just broken down into a grid or into a grid. And then here's my overall asset count. I have 164 assets. I have a subscription of 5,000 and I have 4,836 remaining. So I have plenty of bandwidth to go deploy more customers before having to upgrade my account. Report section. You can schedule all these reports. This is
the other meat. Sorry, Mark. So, I was just going to say this is the other exciting part of what a lot of MSPs are really excited on how they can use these.
So you can schedule all of these reports that I'll show. How you want to schedule, weekly or monthly. If you select monthly, it's going to have you select the day of the month you want them. Report type. You have network, external, executive summary, top vulnerability, log4j report, inventory report, executive report, and an XML dump. And you can either select one or you can select multiple reports. And for what customer? Do you want to run this every month on the 24th for all your customers or just for Aperture or any one of your individual customers? So now those reports on that cadence will automatically be in your dashboard for you to come in and retrieve them. Well, let's just say we want to do it on demand right now. I'll select Aperture. I'll say I want to run executive summary. I'm going ahead and run that. You can see it's been submitted up top here. It's going to first generate a PDF, or excuse me, an HTML. There, that's done. I'll go ahead and download that. The PDF is generated off of the HTML file. Very generic. You can slap your own cover page on it. There's no branding of Nodeware anywhere on this. So here it is, the date it was run. The time period is the last 30 days, and it's for 18 assets. So in this report, we call this the executive level report. They want to know a high 10,000 foot view of the health of the network, but they don't want to get into any of the technical nitty gritty. So we provide top 10 vulnerability. Well, we provide the score, of course. Top 10 vulnerabilities, the most common vulnerabilities, and the number of assets it affects. A visualization of it. There's your breakdown of critical, high, medium, low, respectively. And then the executive summary. What is continuous vulnerability management? What does it help me do? How confidentiality, availability, integrity, so on and so forth. That text at the bottom is canned, but it does provide, what is Nodeware doing for me as a customer? Looking at a network report, you'll see is very similar in the top 2 pages. The main difference, so again, it's for the same customer, all the same data. But now we're starting to get into some technical data. Now it's starting to show assets. So if I want to dive into this machine right here, click it. Now everything that you saw in the dashboard for this machine is in this report. The actual dashboard, it's a 1-to-1 match, but this, you could then send this to one of your techs and say, here, focus on this machine today and get this thing remediated without having to grant them access to the dashboard. That being said, you can grant access to the dashboard. by going down to your username and selecting team environment. You can build out your team. So all of your texts, you can just hit invite member. We just need first name, last name, and email address. The level of access. Analyst is read-only. Technician is almost administrative, but they can't create and modify any teams. They can't necessarily disable sensors or do stuff like that. Admin is what it says, full rights to the system. So this is also good if you want to get a customer up and running, get it deployed, collect data, then you want to invite your customer. You can do that at this time as well. So if you want to invite customer Aperture, you give a first name, last name, email. You want to give them read-only access, you want to give them access to Aperture, hit invite. They would then receive an email that says so-and-so has invited you to join their Nodeware team. They follow that link, create a user, password, create their multi-factor authentication. When they log in, what they would see, they would only see this Aperture Science card customer object. They would not see these other three in this account. So that's a nice way to share data with your customer, especially if it's like a commit situation where they're going to be doing some remediation to help you out.
Hey, Mark, we got a question kind of in regards to the deployment of the sensor. So if there's a AI, let's say an AI system, or how are we kind of catching a customer sensor misallocation to another customer, right? So let's say you set it up for Aperture, but it really should be for Dunder or vice versa.
Well,
Is that possible in the front part of that, or how do you fix it?
When you're connecting the sensor, it's going to ask you for that 4-digit code. When you're typing in, this is the linkage, that 4-digit code, the part of the deployment, is the connection. That's connecting the sensor to the customer. And here I would select the customer that I want to apply it to. So that's the linkage from the sensor to the client within Nodeware.
And so if let's say they did it for Aperture, but they really meant it for Dunder, can they just do that again? Just reconnect a different one? Oh, I need to make sure that
they would have, since that connection has already been made, what they would want to do is click the activate button, deactivate the sensor. That will turn down that sensor, and then deploy a new one. Or they can follow the support tab and submit a support request and say, hey, I connected a sensor to a wrong customer. Can you correct that? Our support team will take care of that on the back end for you.
But that validation with the 4 digits, that's kind of I mean, it's hard to do a operator error. I mean, it's possible to assign it to a wrong customer, but it would never actually get deployed, right? Or
no, it would scan because the sensor is installed on the network. Let's say you deployed a Hyper-V sensor in California for company A, but you assigned it to company B, which is completely independent. That data would show up under company B, right? So that would be something where you would want to turn down that sensor and reconnect it properly, connect it to the right customer. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've maybe had 2 of those over the last 8 years that I've been doing this with Nodeware. So it's a rarity, but it can be done, right? So that's you're installing a pretty sophisticated system in a relatively easy manner. You just want to take your time and make sure you're reading and selecting the proper boxes.
And if you go in, maybe go into the customer and sort of the managing of the customer. I guess you can do it through there, but just to reemphasize the point. So in that manage, right, if you're going to deploy a new sensor somewhere for Aperture, right, you would go in.
Right, it'd be connect a sensor. The customer object's already created.
Okay.
And you want to connect the sensor. You would do it under Sensors Connect. When you're deploying what you would do is hit the IP address of the sensor, and it would give you the 4-digit code.
Got it.
And all of this deployment are 100% documented right here for your VMware, your Windows deployment sensor right here. So this is a step-by-step. If you follow this document upon your first deployment, you will not connect to the wrong sensor, right? Enter your 4-digit code, optional name, and then select the customer. Right. So We've
Okay.
been down the road enough to where we think we've streamlined it. Of course, we know people fat finger stuff in the wrong fields and mistakes happen. That's what the support team is here to help you get resolved. But it's nothing
Perfect.
to worry about that can't be cleaned up on the back end within a matter of moments.
Okay. Mark, we talked a little bit, or I did at the beginning, I think, and you did as well, just thinking about externals, right? So the network sensors capture everything on the network. Agents, are for devices that need credentialed or remote. Maybe explain a little bit about what we can do with externals and
Yeah,
how that
so
can be.
external scanning is, we have 4 large external scanners that reside across all the major cloud infrastructures. And similar to your sensor you download and deploy on your LAN, these are just massive external sensors. You submit, you opt in, and you tell us what to scan, and those will go scan upon the cadence that you tell us to. So we will probe those for that. Let's say you provide your public IP address to your firewall. We will probe that firewall, find open ports, find the services that are running, find any weaknesses or vulnerabilities for that identified device that are that have CVEs published for it. Here you can see external is identified by a cloud icon. So if I click external, here are all my externals that I've submitted. Here's the IP is the 999. Chances are it's going to say all ports tested or closed. That's ideal, right? That's perfect. But for let's see, this one probably has something. So this one's shown as port 80 and port 443 open. Not anything major, especially if it's a web server. That's pretty good. But this allows you to not only scan your internal assets, but your external assets as well. We do also provide a whois lookup over here. You can see the domain whois. We provide that for our public whois data on externals. And you can even sell this as if someone's only interested in protecting their external assets. You don't have to scan internals. You can just do externals. We've done it for like some hosting companies. They just have a ton of web servers and they just wanted to sell the external scanning capability to their customers.
Great. Okay. And I think you kind of covered this when another question came up about deploying their credentials and sort of the why of it. And it's pretty clear, right? It's the agents are already deployed as credentialed scans, and then the network is, a network device that we deploy credentials to is just allowing the full access to the data on that device and gives us all kinds of data on the OS, any particular apps that have known vulnerabilities, any other sort of connectivity devices, could be printers, could be anything. And again, I just wanted to reiterate that as a comment to a question.
Yeah, so the real key point to credentials are, in order to provide the level of data that you saw in that deep scan, right, the path and the actual file that caused it, you need access to the file system as well as the registry in order to pull that data out. So to be able to pull that data out, in 99% of the cases, you need access to that machine. That's what credentials allows. It's just a back-end log into that system, and then we're allowed to read that data and display it to you so you can get that deep scan data set. The other thing is Log4j came out about this time last year, big hoopla around Java and jar files and all this stuff. Credentialed scans, in order for us to scan for Log4j, which on credentialed scans is the default. After the vulnerability scan, we immediately go into Log4j scan and scan the entire file system. It has to have credentials because it needs to see all the files on the file system in order to find the path and the affected file that could be causing Log4j issues. So pretty important. I will say 3 years ago, I was not too concerned about credentialed scanning. Now I say agents and credentialed scanning wherever you can. It's that important. Times have changed that fast in that little amount of time.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay, I think Vinay, we covered the follow up on that. So we've got credentials. There was another kind of question about the installation setup. I think we covered that pretty well, but just in terms of, I guess I'll just reiterate the time to data right, is, I mean, realistic with the Windows sensor, it's going to be about 30 minutes that you're going to have certain access into the data, some of the vulnerability numbers, the scoring. The larger the network, it might be a little bit longer, but it's really pretty quick to time there. So, okay, I think we covered everything. I think we covered the questions that came in as well. If we just we'll just kind of wrap up here a little bit early, and wanted to reiterate a couple things. One, if you're interested, if you're not already a current user, we'd love to set up a proof of concept with you. You can select, send us an email at nodeware@IGIUS. You can go to nodeware.com or nodeware.com/partner as well to register, and we can start you up and do a proof of concept if you'd like for 14 days or longer if you needed. Within that, we'll load some assets so you can test your own environment. You can also do free trials with your customers. It's really a great tool for utilizing the platform for a sort of discovery, right? Or prospective customers say, hey, we want to take a look at your network. We want to see, how we can provide better service than what you're getting today. So within that free trial, you can see, maybe they have 3 devices that are critical to others. So you might be able to provide a quote for your standard managed services and security services, but you could also, you might have a separate statement of work that covers some old machines that need to be upgraded or whatever. So you're welcome to use the free trial. You can use it with a customer and look at unlimited free assets, free quantity of assets, or unlimited, excuse me, within that. So the proof of concept was for you. Trials within that you can set up with your customers and start learning from them, the data from them. So we will be doing this. If you happen to be an ASCII member or a 7-figure MSP, let us know that. We have some special offers for them within their membership program. So we can help you there, get a little bit extra value. But again, we'd love to see you again. And we hold these monthly. If you can go to nodeware.com/events, we'll be following up with you otherwise. And we wish you all the happiest of holidays and Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or Happy New Year for everybody. And welcome to Nodeware. We look forward to hearing from you some more. Thank you again for your attendance today, and have a great long weekend and happy holidays.
Take care.